welcome back to another episode of Masked Monologues. Today, I am excited to have Kenny J here with me. He is a musician. He's going to tell you exactly what he does and walk us through his projects.
Thank you so much for getting me on. I'm interested in just trying to promote positivity in my music. I'm from a small town in New Jersey called Englewood, New Jersey. I was raised with three sisters and a mom. Of course, sometimes you walk into a space where you're not necessarily around your father a lot, but I grew up in the space still, even with that dynamic, interested in making sure I use my music to promote positivity. I'm a dad of three children and a grandson. All of my children are over the age of 20, and my grandson is 4. And I'm just in the space of just promoting and doing what I do. As an artist, it's important that I not stay in the space of creating the negative narrative, but to place myself and my gift into an arena that's able to help promote positivity and vibe on women with regard to empowering them and show support that you guys are as just you walking right beside us and we're just in this world existing together and no one's above us, no one's beneath us, no one's anywhere other than just we should be pushing positivity and making sure as a musician that I'm using my gift to promote positivity. In a nutshell, that's basically who I am.
I love your mission, positive vibes,
Mhm,
everything. I
mhm,
want to know how you started off as a
mhm,
musician. How long have you been doing this? What
mhm,
instruments do you play? If there's a lot
mhm,
of musical instruments you play, do you do more
mhm,
of the music production? Is it the
mhm,
song, the vocals?
mhm.
What is it that you do?
Where I'm from, in that small city of Englewood, New Jersey, you had to be a person that wears many hats from the gospel church. And if you were an organist, you had to be a pianist. If you were a pianist, you had to be a drummer. If you were a drummer, you had to be able to sing. I was blessed enough to know and fool around with a bunch of different instruments, which I currently used in most of all of my production. That'll be keyboard, drums, singing, leads, backgrounds, mixing, mastering. These days, with the space that we're in currently, you have to learn a little more than just one thing. They talk about being a one trick pony. You have to learn and know how to do a bunch of different things just to stay relevant. So, all of my productions that you hear are all songs that were written, produced, wrote by me, mixed and mastered by me. Photo, every video, everything I've learned how to, if not be the best at it, but do the best that I can to just get my agenda out.
So now I'd like to know more about your process. So
Yeah.
you say that you wear many hats, you switch from
Mhm,
one instrument to the other. It really
mhm,
comes down to what is in demand you need
mhm,
to execute. I
mhm,
want to know how you usually start off one of your productions. So I know a lot of people, especially music producers, they go into their DAW, set up some chords, you play with a is that your process, or are you someone who likes to start off at the piano, at the keyboard, and
mhm,
then you move it over to the DAW?
mhm.
Do you also do lyrics? I'm
Yeah.
just thinking that you have so much of an instrumental background. The
Mhm,
musicality must be what comes to you first, or that's what
mhm.
I'm assuming, just from hearing your backstory
Yeah,
and your experience. Do
yeah.
you tend to do that?
It's gonna depend on what you're inspired by. Sometimes it'll happen when you're in the studio, sometimes it happens when you're riding in the car, sometimes it happens when you're at the grocery store. It can even happen in the still of the night when you're sleeping. I have a pen and paper or a pen and pad on the side of my bed. If something inspires me, it'll wake me up and I'll just cut
Yeah.
it down and go back to sleep.
I'm also a singer-songwriter, and
Mhm.
sometimes you wake up at 3 AM, you've got this idea, and you
Yep.
can't let it go. You've gotta go to the
Yeah.
bedside, pick it up,
Yeah.
write it.
Yeah, the blessing and the curse of just being a creative and just having that mindset of wanting to always create. It's a gift to have, but it's also something that kind of it's I wouldn't say annoying. It just bothers you. That's the itch you can't scratch, so to speak.
People
Yeah.
look at you like you're crazy.
People that are not creatives will never understand it. People
I
that
know.
are, whether you write a book, or whatever you do well and you enjoy to do it, the creatives in that headspace, that's going to be something okay.
No, I was in a movie theater, I think it was a couple days ago, and I stopped to get out my phone and record something. My friend
Mhm.
was looking at me, she's, "What are you doing?"
My phone is full of notes. My phone is full of audio recordings of me either mouthing something, singing something, humming something, ideas, perspectives, just anything that passes my head. I've written whole songs it just wouldn't stop. It's just something that's a part of us that we can't shake. It's just an itch we can't scratch.
Now, I'd like to know, you say that you
Mhm,
wear a lot of hats, and
mhm,
I'm wondering, do you do collaborations as well? Do you
mhm.
have musician friends? Are you part of a band?
Yeah, I'm a part of or was a part of the church to that degree, and every one of the musicians in the church kind of stick together. Whether you do secular music or you do gospel music, whatever you do, if you play an instrument, whether you write or whatever the case may be, you still have a community of people that you're able to go to and just collaborate. So yes, I do collaborate. Sometimes I'll get somebody to help me play a guitar lick or play a bass or play a drums. If you want a different flavor, then yes, it is okay to go outside of yourself to just explore other sounds and other perspectives and voices. It makes things a little interesting. Sometimes the business of it gets a little jaded and blurry because some people will try to get a lot more from what you create and them being a part of it than they're worth. But that's just a part of the collaboratory sort of space that you're in. I love sometimes a friend of mine will I'll write something on a piece of paper and I come up with a whole song from 2 lines. And he's like, how the heck did you do that? But again, it's just the mind that we have.
Yes. Now, I'd like to know what type of music you write. Do you
Mhm,
experiment with a lot of different genres? What do you like to incorporate in your music tracks? Maybe it's you like guitars a lot in your tracks, or is there a certain style that
mhm.
would sum up your artist profile?
But what I have on my hard drive is a myriad of different styles from country, folk, gospel, R&B, jazz, instrumental sort of stuff. I'm sure the audience will say it's probably R&B, but I normally would leave that up to the audience to decide. I don't like to classify it, but we do find ourselves in a world where people, to have that classification. Sometimes when you leave it so broad, it goes into an area that it's not supposed to be. For me, the music that I tend to write tends to be inspired by just giving information and inspiring and positive, and the sound of it is going to point to more. You'll know it's jazz, you'll know it's gospel because you hear it. Nowadays, sometimes you get into a space where your gospel is not necessarily the gospel until you hear the name of God or something like that. Sometimes they even get into the inspirational space because you're giving positive information, positive vibes. It's really going to depend on what listener is listening for it. Spotify or Apple Music will probably say R&B soul.
Okay, so now I want to ask you about the business part of music creation. What
Mhm,
have you found has been effective to build your audience, to connect with your audience on a deeper level? Do you have
mhm,
any tips and tricks for maybe other musicians out there who are just
mhm.
starting out?
Yeah, my tip would be explore every option. There's not one thing that's going to work. I don't ever want to get into the space of just saying do a whole lot of promo or get on a whole bunch of platforms or get out here on the street with flyers. It's not one particular thing. It's just a bunch of different things. I so appreciate all of the platforms and podcasts and TV stations and just the conversations that I've been having, just pushing the agenda. But all of those things make a difference into getting your music to masses because it could be that one person. It could be that one conversation that you have in the supermarket that's able to push it. So you never know. Never leave any rock unturned. Turn over every rock. Look, open up every door. Look and make sure. And just look. I don't think we should ever shut ourselves off and just pick one thing. It should be a bunch of different things that'll work for you. Try everything.
Okay, so I hope you don't mind me asking, but
Sure.
I can't help but to notice your home studio. Can you
Hmm.
talk about the setup, how you
Hmm.
positioned it, and
Hmm.
how you can have it so it's convenient and you can just write a song whenever the inspiration comes and you can just get right into recording? Because I know that is one barrier to writing a song.
My studio setup is fairly these days. You don't need I have a keyboard back here that's able to do a bunch of different things. I could write a song on that alone. So it's good to have a keyboard that you can get through pretty fast to get the idea down. Once you get the idea down, you can transfer it over to the computer or just recreate it in the computer. It's all about just using the keyboard that you have that's a workstation as a scratch pad to get out the idea, lay the rhythmic track or whatever. Then you take that and just move it to the computer and you spend more time on the computer perfecting it to where you want it to be. So when it comes to mixing and mastering, I like actually touching an actual fader. I love to actually touch the equipment because it gives me the nostalgia of being back in when I was touching the board for me, and then I'll move it into the software. I use Logic mainly because it's easy. So if I want to take my Logic program and put it into Pro Tools, it's a fairly easy process and it's not going to take me a lot of time. I can do my vocals there and it has my sounds in there. If I have a plugin or a sound I want to use, I could go straight there and pull up a sound and use it. It will be right in front of my face.
Yes, and now I want to ask you
Mm,
about vocals. So I know
mhm,
a lot of people struggle with getting good vocal takes, or
mhm,
especially if you're recording the vocals yourself and then you're
mhm,
going back, you're editing
mhm,
them, and you
mhm,
think, oh, I don't like how this one sounds.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so I want to know how you go about selecting your vocals. You want to get that vocal clarity. You've probably
mhm,
got a compressor on.
mhm,
You've got everything set up, and then you just
mhm,
record it into the mic. Can you even
mhm.
elaborate on what type of mic you
Yeah,
use?
such as me, I use a condenser mic called Sterling Audio. And for me, when I'm singing into the microphone, the only thing that I'm really concerned about is presence. I want to make sure that I'm close enough to the microphone where I don't sound so far away from it that the microphone has to fight to hear it. As close as I get to the microphone, I'll put a compressor on, but most of the time that's it. When I'm mixing, all of the effects and all of that stuff goes off. Never have any of that stuff on when you're doing vocals unless you're just trying to hear what it's going to sound like. But you normally would want to have a flat response EQ and you're to get best presence of a vocal as you can. And then normally I would normalize it, which means to bring up the frequency to headroom. And then you'll do all the edits and all of the stuff that you need. I have something around my that's able to captivate the sound. It's like a big ball, just captivates the sound so it's not going to the left or to the right, up or down. It's important that you also get a your mic preamp is going to help you get the cleanest. White noise should not be a problem because when you're talking into a microphone with a preamp to it, your preamp is going to boost your system up to get it in your DAW.
Okay, and now I want to ask, I'm not sure if you do it a lot for your style,
Mhm,
R&B, but belting. So I know that belting can be problematic when it comes to recording sometimes,
mhm,
just because you shoot your audio levels higher because you're
mhm,
belting. What do you do to level out the sound, normalize it, make sure you
mhm,
have that clarity there,
mhm.
and you can also pick up the nuances of the vocals?
Yeah, that's going to be your compression. Your compression is going to make sure, and you have to know how to work that out and know what your headroom and your threshold looks like. Do some study on that. Once you get your compression and you understand it, you have to understand what your vocals do in a compressor. When you understand what your vocals do in a compressor, you're able to establish how it's going to sound in your mix and how it's going to translate. If it's too hot or if the threshold is not high or low enough, you could give it too much and it'll sound like it's distorted when you're singing, or you can give it too little and it sound like you're in a box. It's got to be a good level, a good balance, and just understand what that is. Sometimes people will belt. I know in gospel, belting is it's the style of singing which kind of gives you a growling, yelling vibe, which needs a huge amount of compression. The analog system works a whole lot different than digital. Your digital does not have a lot of headroom to give you the greatest sound in the world. So you have to understand what your system is going to do. The analog system, it's no comparison because you can yell as loud as you want to. And as long as your compression was on, you'll probably have the greatest sound that you can even imagine. The digital system is a little different because you won't have but so much headroom in that system where it's going to distort. So once you understand the compression, it'll be able to, you'll hear it.
Okay, and now I want to ask you if there's any VST plugins that you've noticed have been useful, if they've been helpful for any of your tracks.
Yeah, I'm a Spectrasonic guy. The creator of Spectrasonic was the guy that did a whole lot of work on the Roland keyboards back in the day. I'm talking the 1080s, the JP, not nowadays. I think he's still really working on the Spectrasonic. Hemisphere is one. He used a crap load of them. Even Melodyne is something that's important for vocal tuning. Spectrasonic is probably one of the VSTs that I use a lot because it gives you the realistic feel of a piano. Sometimes Logic doesn't give us best sampling bit rate on the pianos, but Spectrasonic really nailed it when they got it, and it sounds phenomenal. So if there's one go-to I'll promote, it's going to be Spectrasonic because that's just phenomenal.
Yes. And now you touched on this a bit, but you were talking about Melodyne, and
Hmm.
there's this whole, I guess, controversy around auto tuning and
Hmm.
pitching vocals. But
Mhm,
if let's be honest, all the top 10 tracks, they've got Melodyne on. I want to know how you go about tuning. So I know you can change the levels of the tuning, how much
mhm,
auto-tune you put on a vocal. Some people do that stylistically just to get
mhm,
that auto-tune effect. I want to know what you find works with your pitching and when you should re-record a vocal
mhm,
instead of just trying to pitch it to where it
mhm.
needs to be.
Yeah. Okay. So Melodyne is one thing that's different from auto tuning. Auto tuning gives you the T Pain feel to me. Okay. Auto tuning seems to have the robotic thing. Melodyne, the way I use it is a lot different than that. Auto tune seems to robotically place your notes specifically on different notes without any slur or without the understanding of the breath that a human has. Melodyne works a little different because what it'll do is if any singer that's singing, the thing that's important about recording a vocal is going to be the performance of that vocal. And there's one tiny note that could be off from your hearing that you need to kind of tune. You could be flat, you could be sharp, whatever the case may be. That one note, if you like that performance, you normally don't want to have to do the performance over again. We'll have you select that one particular note and able to move it up into an area that's kind of be pleasing to your ear. Sometimes the studio is a different vibe than singing live in many cases. You can be off a key, off a note, or especially when you're going up tempos and you're really in the vibe of
Mhm.
it. When you're in a studio will be your worst nightmare if you're not capable of knowing what that is. You'd be like, oh my God, I'm off today, I'm this, I'm that. Having that extra edge of using a melodyne sort of situation, it gets your process flowing. I'm concerned about person that doesn't know how to sing at all, and then they'll take a melodyne and go through every note that they sing to get it up to where it needs to be. So when you're using it as an advantage to find that one note that you have a problem with and getting it where it needs to be instead of doing the whole performance over again, that can be taxing on your voice. It can really mess up your creativity because you're like, man, I don't think I can ever do that. Melodyne for me is pushes that little section up to where it needs to be, and you're able to move on to the next part. So that's how I use it. I do hear in live performances that some people use the auto tune, which is fine. Nobody sings like that in real life, though. But that's how I use Melodyne. Auto tune, not so much. Maybe if I'm trying to get a vibe or something, but I'll never use it on a whole song. Has to be a certain part.
No, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Vocal training is necessary,
Yeah.
but you can be naturally talented a million.
Yeah. But most of us depend on the other technology to give us a little more edge and it helps us.
So now I want to ask if
Mhm,
people want to connect with you, where
mhm.
can they find you?
Sure. You can reach me on Instagram at Kenny Wilkins. You can reach me on TikTok at Kenny J. Wilkins with the number 7 there. You can reach me on Facebook at Kenny J. Wilkins. I do have a website called kennyjmusic.com. You can reach me there, or you can reach me on my email. It's kennyjwilkins@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was
Thank
a
you. Thank you so
lovely
much.
episode with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you like
Yes.
this podcast
Mhm,
episode and you want
mhm.
more episodes like this, then please do share it with a friend or family member.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.